Welcome to Well Played Podcast, a show on all things playful and joyous in education. I'm your host, MrMatera, 6th grade teacher, author, and motivational speaker. Today we have another new guest with us on Well Played. I am super excited to introduce Marion Ellery from Melbourne, Australia. And before we kind of dive into what we're talking about, I would love for you to give a bit of introduction of like what you teach and all that.
Yeah, so I'm currently teaching Year 5. I've been teaching for 13 years. I am a primary school trained teacher, and I have predominantly the last 12 years spent in primary schools. And then this year I've done a bit of a shake-up and working across Year 8. A bit of a step out of my comfort zone and teach them different year levels. I've volunteered and taught refugees earlier this year in January, which was amazing, and then done a lot of volunteer work upskilling teachers in Malaysia and teaching them 21st century pedagogy, which has just helped to sort of question how I do things. And it really got me sort of starting on this, okay, well, how am I doing things? Am I doing things the best that I possibly could be? And yeah, it was really January last year that really got me in my best sort of engaging with Twitter and everything like that. And yeah, I'm just really to what the future holds now that I'm learning all these exciting strategies.
That's awesome. So I have to ask, because I'm sure some people, including me, I don't know what the Australian system is in terms of some of those numbers. So if we were to talk about like how old are the kids that you have taught or that you've currently taught or you shook up, right? Like you gave us all those stats, but I don't know what all these U's mean. So
So well, last year I was teaching like 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds. And then I jumped into this year teaching like 14-year-olds. So it was a massive jump. Yeah. And homeroom. And so I was very out of, what could have been someone's like, oh my goodness, what are you doing? But I loved it. And I did, like my first lesson with them was teach like a pirate with the Play-Doh and like putting on the screen, like and suddenly they're like, what's going on? Like it was straight away doing different things that they'd never, done before. So I guess I hooked them from the start that I was a fun, different teacher. And
that's
so,
awesome.
Yeah, but now I'm sort of back sort of teaching like sort of, I think they're 10-year-olds. Age is something that I just never really ask. I know it's really strange, and I've been a teacher for ages, and people are like, oh, how old are your students? I'm like, I don't know. Like, it's just not something that I feel like I need to know about my students. Like, I need to know what they love to do and what they like to, and all that's their hobbies and different things, not necessarily like age is just a number,
No, 100% agree, but just to kind of contextualize, because I didn't know what level. So like in the United States, you're talking about teaching, like you were teaching 8th grade, now you're teaching like 5th or 6th grade.
5th grade,
here.
That's the sort of same. So, and because I teach in an independent or a private school, I'm teaching in a middle school, so they're just years 5 to 8. Whereas if I was in a government school in Melbourne, that year 5 would be in a primary school. So we have like prep to 6, so it's different.
Yeah, that's actually similar to my experience. I teach at a private school, and I teach in the middle school, and I teach 6th grade, but our middle school starts 5th through 8th, but that's not typical for around where I live. But so very same. So we're both in the middle school. Yay!
Yeah, yeah, which is exciting. Because for, my whole career, I've been teaching years 3 and below. So teaching year 5 now, it's good because they're older and I can do more things that I haven't been able to do in the past.
Sure.
So, yes, it's an exciting time.
Yeah, so what we're going to talk about today, just to kind of bring everybody in, we are going to sort of talk about that you've sort of recently got into doing some gamification things in your classroom. And I kind of want to like let people in on sort of your story, where you've started from, where you got your ideas and how you started and put it in play. Cause I think it might inspire others. Cause I don't think you spent a ton of time and like, this wasn't something that you really like thought about for super long. Like You kind of
No.
got the idea and you're like, let's do this. So
Yeah.
let's start there. Where
Yeah.
did you even get the idea to start?
Well, I participated in the Hive Summit last year,
Hmm.
which was something that I came across on Twitter, and I was just like, oh, what's this? And, I was hooked from the get-go. Gamification. Oh, that sounds like a wonderful idea that will really hook my students in. And at the time I was teaching year 2, and I just sort of used gamification which now I sort of realized was more of a sort of a game-based learning rather than
Sure.
gamify. But I used elements to improve their writing. Like my class really hated writing, and they, I really have to remind them of capital letters and full stops, and it was just driving me mental. I'm like, I always say using punctuation should be do you ever forget your underwear? And they're like, no, of course not. And I'm like, well, that's what punctuation should be. You just never
That's
forget
awesome.
it, and it's just always there. And so, some kids would repeat that back to me and everything, but it wasn't consistent that punctuation was there. So then I tried with using, so if you won't get any points for a sentence if there's no punctuation there. And then, if you used a conjunction, then you'd get it 40 points for your sentence. Or if you used, depending on what the content was that I was teaching at the time, I was teaching them how to use dialogue correctly. And so I said, well, if you've got dialogue, then you get a bonus, 50 points or, different things like that. And I only gave them 10 minutes to write. And in that time, 10 minutes, the amount that they wrote in that time was the same amount that they would normally take in 50 minutes. And I was just like, what is going on? This is
Sure.
insane. And so I, called it I think I called it freestyle writing. Because Freestyle Friday was the day that I did it, and then a relief teacher took my class and said, "Oh, you should call it Fun Freestyle, Friday, because it's just such an engaging lesson." And I just couldn't believe they were all quiet and they were, And so I just sort of, that's where it sort of began, and I realized how an effective strategy that could be sort of used. But I sort of just did it in isolation. Whereas when I watched the Hive Summit this time around, and it was just linking it to different areas, a pin dropped, and it was okay, well, I've got this year 5 class now. Well, let's not do gamification in isolation. Let's see if you can use it across areas of learning. And so I was, I watched it. I think I watched it on Sunday, and then on morning, I was up at 3:30 a.m. My brain woke me out of my sleep and was like, oh my goodness, you've got this amazing idea. And I was just like, are you real? At 3 in the morning, okay, I've just got to write this down. Okay, so my year 5s are learning all about the gold rush. And so it's linked into many different things and colonization of Australia and lots of different things. But the main thing that they're learning in humanities is the gold rush. And in maths, what they're learning about is fractions and decimals and everything. And my boys have really struggled with adding fractions with a different denominator. And I was like, okay, I was thinking, what's something I can do with that? And then a boy another day was like, oh, can we do something with gold in the classroom? I was like, okay. And then at this 3:30 a.m. in the morning, all of these are connected. And I was just like, oh, and because I'd watched Survivor, and it's my favorite ultimate, game, I was like, okay, we can do Gold Rush Survivor. And I was just like, amazing. And the boys can earn gold, and I can have them. So it's not just you're earning a bar of gold, it's I've got it as a quarter gold and half gold and, different things like that. So then they have to add fractions with
That's great.
the denominator. And so there's lots of ones that I haven't printed off, 7 8s and, different ones. So then they have to go, well, how many is 8s is the quarters and different things. And so they're making connections before they can turn it into a gold bar. So I was like, oh, that's amazing. And so at that time, and I was like, no, it's 4 a.m. in the morning. I've got those ideas down now. Probably go to sleep. You have to teach the following day. So then I was just trying to go to sleep. I'm like, oh, but you can design your logo now, And so then I searched for a Survivor, free to use. And then I edited it and put little gold nuggets on there, and then wrote Gold Rush down the bottom. I was like, oh, that's so amazing. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I actually need to do change up with my tables, like where they're sitting at the moment. It's driving me mental. Like I'm having to manage too many things. Oh, okay, well, this is how I can put them into the tribes. So then with that logo, I made labels that said all around the gold rush. So I put it into Chinese miners, Australian miners, Irish miners, and English miners. Like, oh, these can be my tribes. And so I put my new designed Survivor logo with the Chinese and, whatever next to them. And then in the morning, I was like, perfect. Okay, well, I'm going to print these off, laminate them. I was like, oh, where can I'll put them underneath their chairs, because they're not going to, see or whatever. So then I actually, when I put them under their chairs, I turned them so you couldn't see it. It was just like a white piece of paper. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, oh, but now I just have to make sure that nobody sees them. So I took all the chairs down, and they noticed that in the morning when they came in, they're like, oh, all the chairs are all down. And I said, oh, I just took down the chairs, like, oh, thanks, Miss Ellery. I'm like, oh, you're welcome, just
I did that for you.
But they had like a session before I was going to teach them. And so I was very mindful, like, oh, okay, I have to try and, steer them away from seeing, to make it really exciting. And I noticed one label fell off, and I was just like, oh, okay, quickly, like, try and stick it back on. And, he didn't say anything. I was like, perfect. And then as soon as that lesson finished, I put on my label of my Survivor. I played the soundtrack of the music, and I was like, all right, we've got, we're doing Survivor in our class. Like, you need to find out your tribes, have a look under your chair. And like, what? We're doing something. Like, they just could not, like, contain themselves. They're like, oh, I'm in the Chinese miners. Which one are you in? And they were just like, hysterical. And I was just like, oh, and I'm like, now you've got to arrange yourselves into the tribes, and you've got to, like, arrange your shelters, get yourselves into groups and everything. And they were just like, but are we just doing this for tables? Like, is that all it is? And I'm like, no. I'm like, we are going to do Survivor in our classroom. They're like, what? I didn't know that school could be this much fun. And they were just, and that was just the beginning. Like, that was just setting them up. And then like, oh, can we have idols? And can we really play Survivor? I'm like, yeah, we can really play.
Yeah, we're going to do this.
Like, but it was like I was having as much fun as they were. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's obvious. 100%. Like, I'm a passionate teacher, and you can't bottle that up. But yeah, that was just like the start. And then I said, oh, like, we'll have reward challenges. Oh, can we have one now? And I'm like, oh, sure. Like, I was like, I haven't really thought about anything, but it's your game as much as mine. Like, what do you want to do? Oh, let's have a spelling quiz. Okay, so then, one from each tribes then coming and doing a spelling, and, we just sort of played along. And so bringing it sort of back to the gold rush is that the miners had to have a license to be able to pan for the gold. And if they didn't, then they could be thrown in jail, or, couldn't earn as much gold, or different things like that. So then I designed a gold miner's license. And so I said, the first reward that you get is a license. And they're like, oh, can't we buy the license? Or, I said, well, in Survivor, you get matches. You can't buy them. You only can get them through reward. Likewise, in our game, you can only get the license through a reward. And so because we've got the 4 tribes, I was like, whoever wins, they can all get licenses. But whoever comes second, you can only get 3 licenses. And so then when I was like awarding them like gold because they've been engaged or amazing questions or, whatever, I said, oh, if you've got a license, then I'll give you the full amount that I was going to give you. So, Michael, if you were, oh, well done, you worked really well as a team, here's half a gold, can I see your license? And they said, oh, I don't have a license. Well, then you're only getting a quarter of gold. Whereas if someone else had their license, then they could get that full half gold. So that was really interesting. And we went to the science lab, which I go only like sort of once a week there. And so I said to them, I said, I'm taking my gold. So I had announced that to everyone. Not everyone had picked up on that cue. But then when we were over there, I was just like, oh, I'm going to give everyone, a half a gold. It'll be working really, really well. And then they're like, oh, but I didn't bring my license. And I'm like, well, that means you can only get a quarter. Oh, but can I get back to class? No, sorry. Like, and so then it was, like, oh, I have to remember to, bring my license everywhere with me. And then someone left their gold on their table, and then it was gone. And so then I linked it back to like actually being in the gold rush. I said, well, say someone left their gold behind, like what would have happened? And they're like, well, somebody would have taken it. And said, so what do you think happened here? Or someone took it. I said, how do you think the gold miners would have felt back then? oh, really frustrated. And I go, and how do you feel now? Was there a lesson that they would have learned? Likewise, you've learned the lesson. So like really linking it back into like what I've been teaching them so they can have that sort of rich experience and just, keep it sort of embedding through all the different lessons and everything. So it's been amazing so far. And, I've had a few different people come in and out. And they're like, oh, what are you doing? Oh, that sounds like so much fun. And, oh, can you link me in somehow? And,
Yeah.
so yeah,
I
it's
I love, well, I mean, like breaking down some of the things that you've shared so far. I mean, I love that you took it upon yourself to try to like up your game. So like the year prior, you did gamification and isolation, and I still think that's powerful and that's useful. But as I kind of mentioned at Hive Summit this year, like it's actually not that much harder to sort of like go the step further and make a connected game for the year. And then you have this muscle you can kind of flex whenever you need to. Your Gold Rush game can kind of die down a little bit, and that's fine. They'll be okay. They'll still remember the rules, and then all of a sudden you can bubble it back up next week, and
yeah,
so I love that you challenge yourself to that. I love the story of sort of the 3 a.m. like the mind just was like, oh my gosh, I have to do this. That was so funny to me. And
yeah,
but what I love for anybody that's not watching the episode, for those of you that are listening, like her face is like just lit up when she talked about it, because like while that sounds in one hand terrible that you wake up at 3 a.m. and you're going to have to like teach the whole next day, that wasn't her experience or the energy on her body right now. Like it is totally excited. Like she was excited about the 3 a.m. She was excited about the 4 a.m. Hey, I got to design the logo because that hit my mind. And then still had an awesome next school day.
yeah,
And again, to sort of recap that you said too, I love the piece and I try to stress it in every one of my professional developments. It is the most fun I've had as a teacher. I mean, it is so fun to think about these creative connections, to sort of be playful a little bit. I mean, like you then are in Survivor as well. You are creating Survivor, and you get to use that language of tribes and like idols and tribal
yeah,
challenges and tribal council and all these
yeah,
fun thematic things that really
yeah,
don't happen in school normally. But we can make so many easy connections. And then your last point that you just made, I think the game allows us to build in so many life skills that don't always get like worked in, I think, in a way that's so meaningful, where there's still the clarity of the student. Like either you do like a contrived advising lesson where you're talking about like Jill posts some things online and it's not very good, and like like what did Jill do wrong, and like at least my middle school kids are like, this is lame, and like they don't want to learn from it because it's such a contrived
yeah,
process that you're trying to like break down. Or it's too personal, like something's really happened to them, like they failed a test and they're super sad about failing the test. And while you try to teach them the lesson of like, well, did you study? And they don't hear any of that because they're so sad about the grade. The
yeah,
game is this little sliver, a little buffer where they don't care about it enough to truly cry like the grades, but they care
yeah,
enough that they're like, dang, somebody stole my gold. That stinks. And they listen to the like the real world sort of connections you're making, that like, yeah, and I'm sure the real miners thought that stunk when they laid the bag down and came back and
yeah,
there wasn't there.
yeah, yeah,
So I mean, I think that's so awesome that you've gathered all these things, you've processed all these things, you've experienced all these things. It's so wonderful. And it sounds like you're just raring to get back to school the next day and do some more.
yeah, for sure. And then like thinking about how I can link it sort of into other areas. And well, also the idol question. The idol question has been, that was one of the first questions that the boy said was like, well, can we have idols? And I'm like, oh, well, I don't know how like an idol would be able to be worked in, because obviously I can't vote people out of my class. But then they're continuously saying, well, can we vote people out of our tribe or mixed people or different things? So I'm just sort of like, yeah, questioning and seeing how. And on Friday, we had a reward challenge. and it was an A to Z. I just thought about like pretty much on the spot, A to Z. Write down a word that would have been around the gold rush, and if you think that there's a word that another tribe's going to get, we'll write another different word, because you can only get points for words that other tribes haven't gotten. And so it was very, very interesting because I said your name of your tribe, like sort of, it must be there, it must be on the top.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, there was one tribe that didn't write their name, and so I said, "Oh, whose tribe's this? Like, I might as well throw it in the bin. I don't know whose it is,
I love
And then
it.
I said, and so I said to all the other tribes, I said, "Oh, what should we do? Like, they haven't written their names on. That was one of the things." They're like, "Nah, they shouldn't be included." I said, "Oh, but I will let you know if you would have won." And it was ironic because they would have come equal first if they'd written their name. And like, "Oh, it's not fair." And I said, "This is a teacher's, thing. We always say, write your name. And we're sick of like having to remind you, well, this is a consequence that you're going to remember to always, write your name." But that was like really interesting. It was like a quick little thing that they're writing all these words and everything. And so I was like, "Oh, okay, I'm going to reward them that they can either choose to win gold or have a scroll." And both, and then there was two scrolls that they got to choose between. And then on those scrolls, then they have two choices to make. So it's like you can win gold, or you can take gold from other tribes, or you can win gold, or you can swap a member of your tribe. So that was like the first sort of thing that I'd sort of put down about switching tribes, but you have to choose as a tribe who that's going to be.
I don't know if it
Because
would work.
something different.
That sounds awesome. I would to suggest possibly a way that you could vote people off, because that's a major piece of the show, and the kids might
Yeah.
want to experience that.
Yeah.
You know your game better than me, so again, I don't know if it
Yeah.
would work. But what do you think of like when kids played? I don't know. Here in the United States, a computer game growing up that we played a lot was Oregon Trail. It was like you had like this little covered wagon. It was a little video game, and I don't know. You had to make it from out east to Oregon with your little wagon trail, right? But like obviously you being the main character, you don't die unless the game's over. So a way the game experienced loss was you'd start the game and you'd have to like fill out like the name of all your family members. So you'd have like a family of 8. And
Yeah.
like when something bad happened on the trail, it was like your sister got cholera and died. You didn't get cholera and died because then the game would be over. But like
Yeah.
you kept losing people in your party. So what if like each miners guild had 10 like pretend players, not the actual 4 kids that are in that miners guild, and then like each week based on certain things or each day things could happen in which like somebody from the Chinese miners guild, like we're voting somebody off from that, and it would be one of the phantom players, so now they're down to only like 9 phantom players,
Ah,
right? And then you could start to have some items or power ups or things that might gain people. So like, oh, like we got some breathing room, we won this challenge, and we actually gained 3 more followers or whatever. Um,
yeah.
or
That's
then
cool.
there could be like games that like you could steal some of the phantom followers, which puts people in like more jeopardy because they're closer to 0 phantom players.
Yeah.
You could then make
Sounds
certain challenges be that like if you're successful at today's spelling challenge, if everyone in your miners guild gets 80% or higher on the spelling, each player in the tribe earns a gold bar, and that would include the phantom players. So like they could be earning 14 bars of gold if they had 4 kids plus 10 fake people.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
but that other group's only got 5 fake people. Like they're only going to get 9 bars.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Because that's something that I hadn't really worked out. So that's some really good strategies that I could use within my game, and then also I could use that with idols. So I got my dad. Yes, I was just like, I phoned up. Well, first I phoned up my mum and I said, "Oh, Mum, do you think you could find some random rocks?" I said, "I'm pretty sure there's gold-looking like rocks at your house. Can you find? I need probably about 25." And she's like, oh, yeah, yep. She's in her garden. She's like, oh, I found some. Okay, yep, cool. And then I said, oh, is Dad around? He's like, oh, he's inside. I was like, oh, I'll give him a call. Hi, Dad. Just wondering if, if you can drill a hole through a rock. And he's just like, oh, I'm not too sure. I'd have to, investigate. He goes, oh, what, does it have to be something, a really big rock? I said, oh, well, it's going to be a necklace, so it can't be too big or, whatever. He goes, I'm not sure if it can be done, but I'll, have a bit of a try until you come over later. Anyway, so we discovered that you can drill holes through rocks.
I love this story.
And then, so the 25 rocks is for my maths lesson. So we're learning about like the fractions and decimals and everything. And so what I've done is I don't know if you can see that I've spray painted rocks.
That's awesome looking.
And so there's like, different sizes and everything. And so in my maths lesson, we're going to weigh the rocks, and then they're going to be obviously decimal, and then we can convert it into a fraction. So that's like separate. That's, I guess, a little bit of a, like game-based learning within sort of the, and whoever this gold weighs the most potentially can win some gold or, something. But for the idols, the ones that they're outside, because it's quite strong with the smell, they've got a hole in, and then I'll like make it into a necklace, and it's like a little gold nugget. And when I was on Friday, we just went down to the pub and we're just talking with the teachers. She's like, oh, that sounds really fun. Can I carry an idol? I'm like, oh, okay, I haven't thought about it. She goes, yeah, you can like write clues and everything, and then they have to, find me. I was like, oh, that's quite clever. And so now, like, I, sent a message saying, oh, I've designed these idols. She's like, oh, I'm so excited, love heart. And so I was like, okay, this is cool, like working the school in, so it's not just about our class.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I love, and I say that, I always say this to the boys, this idea sparked from someone else. And then I get, it's not like, they're like, oh, well, you have to, claim bragging rights or something. I said, no, but this is how life is. You get inspired by, other people, come up with your own ideas. That's just how, and they're like, oh, okay. I said, I'm always learning, it's not just you finish school or you start or different things. And they're like, oh, okay. It's really like, they're just, to them, I feel like school has very been about start and finish. Mm-hmm. And, you just come to school for learning, whereas I guess I'm just trying to open their mindset that, because I'm actually only in this class for a term.
Ooh.
So that's something interesting. So I've just come in, someone else has taught them terms 1 and 2. I'm here for term 3, and then they've got a teacher in term 4.
Wow. That's different.
Yeah.
So what will you go do term 4? Are you going to be in some other classroom then? Like, are you jumping to some other class?
Well, I'm actually with my 72-year-old dad. I'm doing what's called the Great Victorian Bike Ride, and we ride from one state to another state along the coast. So that's a big step out of my comfort zone in a whole new context. So that sort of works at the end of report writing time. So it's just a really tricky time. So I just removed myself from the equation to go, I can just do some sort of relief teaching or something sort of during that time. Yeah.
Wow. That's so cool. I love so much of your story. It is fantastic. I love your enthusiasm. I love that you're like thinking of physical props as well as like taking it to the level of like spray painting and drilling it and like giving these idols. I love that you sort of broke down the walls of your classroom and inviting other teachers, and teachers are excited about what's happening in your class, and they see the kids kind of lighten up, and they're like, what's happening? What's this going on? And I love it. I love your enthusiasm to like honor the fact that this is a creation that truly the world's made. It's not yours. It's not the kids. It's not the teacher down the hall. It's everybody's. Everybody has like a stamp on this, and everybody makes it a little better and a little bigger and a little neater. And I think that's so awesome to not be so territorial to it. So that's fantastic. I can't believe it, but we are already out of, like, I know we're already out of time. So it is.
Get me talking my passion topics, and I just get a bit out of control.
It is fantastic. I hope you come on again and we hear more of it. So we have reflection time. So today's quote, are you ready for it?
Yep.
All right, this one comes from one of my favorite presidents, United States presidents, Theodore Roosevelt. He says, each time we face our fear, we gain strength, courage, and confidence in the doing.
Mm.
So do you want to sort of break that down first, or do you want me to break that down first?
Well, I guess as soon as you said that, it brought me to what my year is about this year. It's about, stepping out of your comfort zone. And I've, facing your fear. Like I was like, oh, I'll never teach in secondary. Oh my good, and because I've done that, like I've learnt so much in the process. Yeah, and you grow confident and everything once you've embraced sort of that fear. I actually did something this year that was called Face Your Fears, and it was abseiling down a 113-meter building in the city, and it was raising money for children in foster care. So that's also where my mind went. And yeah, there was definitely that physical fear in that, in the stomach, but you get through it, and it's all about that talking you through that you can do it. It's so much with fear is you need to tell yourself you can do it.
I 100% agree. I think so many people get like tripped up. And so that's similar for me. When I think of this quote, I picked this quote because so many people, when they think about starting something as big as gamification, a lot of times they lose that courage, that strength, that confidence, because there are so many things. Like if we break down everything you said today, there's a lot there. You have a logo, you have tribes, you have gold fractions, you have some sort of idol challenge, and then you have this necklace and these other idols, and now there's other teachers, right? If we would have front loaded that all into the 3 a.m. moment, you might have been like, I can't do this. This is just too much. But the fact that it's sort of like one brick laid onto another brick and one day laid onto another day, and now it's this bigger thing, but yet you smile about it and you're excited to add 4 more bricks to it tomorrow. That works. But like you had to have the courage and the confidence and the strength to get off that square one and lay a few bricks that one day. So, but I think the thing that we have to realize is it is in the doing. Like no amount of more thinking about it, no more sitting on the sidelines. Like at some point you just have to put it into play.
Yeah. Yeah. I think if you start like I did with the smaller stuff, and just see how it works in a small scale, then you can be like, oh, wow, like this is just a way to hook my learners just like that. Well, then, you've done something small before you do something a lot bigger.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Thank you so much for coming on to the show today. I think this is so awesome. I absolutely love it.
Thank you so much for like asking me to be on. Like I am like honored to like. As soon as I got your text, I'm like, oh my goodness, Mom, you'll never guess what happened. Like it's just so exciting, and I'll share this with my class, and I just I'm absolutely thrilled to bits. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I wish I could be in your class. It sounds so awesome. So, keep sharing out what you do. I love it. I want to tag me in all of it. It is so fun to see your journey. I'd love to see your journey when you also go on this bike ride. That bike. That's crazy. That's awesome. So yes, stay connected and continue to bring these ideas to your students and share them out. I think that's so powerful for all of us. Everyone else, thank you for listening to another Well Played podcast, and we will see you next week. I hope everybody enjoys their week and they play on.